Hello,
Right.
everybody.
Hello. It's been
Hi,
a
guys.
while again, but life happens. Life happens. Uh, but today we have a guest. Will you say hello?
Hi, hello. Nice to meet everyone.
It's nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
So basically, you believed Manson's accusers at first, right?
Right.
Uh, why did you believe them, and what made you change your mind?
Well, what's funny is last February, when
Mhm.
I first heard, and I don't remember if it was like on Twitter or if it was in the news, which of course it was in the news, but I don't remember how I first heard of it. When I first heard it was just Evan, I was like, oh, this is maybe another Amber Heard type situation, right? But then I heard there was multiple women, and the way the news is reporting it here was like a half a dozen, then a dozen, then 16 women. And, I'm someone that at the time, and even now, I have some medical issues. I have a life that I lead. Like, I'm not thinking about what's going on in Marilyn Manson and Evan Rachel Wood's life. And I'm like, well, now there's multiple women, and well, there's more people, so therefore it must be true. So I didn't pay any sort of attention after that, except, I just thought it was true. And it wasn't until the trial this year that when they kept saying Marilyn Manson during the Johnny Depp trial, like the boogeyman Marilyn Manson, I'm like, well, maybe I should actually look into this and form my own opinion. And I realized I knew very little of what was being, claimed, but I had already made the assumption that it must be true. And then once I spent some time digging into some of that information just in the same day, I was like, wait, there is more here than what is being alleged, because even I found some inconsistencies on that first day. So that was enough for me to start listening to Marilyn Manson again, because I had stopped listening in support. And I even went as far as to DM Evan Rachel Wood herself on Instagram with my support. So now I just feel almost like a fool. Like, wow. Like, it's definitely a lesson to learn that just because there are multiple people making accusations, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're true.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. That's such an important thing, because so many people think that just because there's so many people coming out, oh, it has to be true. Like, where there's smoke, there's fire. But that's not the case in this situation. And, anything like that, it needs to be further looked into, not just automatically assumed.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And these people that support these accusers still somehow they're just cherry picking and saying like he said, she said. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's reminiscent of the Amber Heard accusations against Johnny Depp, right? The difference is it was only one person. Now you have multiple women, where then it's like, oh, it must be true. Therefore, all these people are just co-signing it, just like I did. And if they actually took the time to actually look into some of this, they'll realize there's a lot of inconsistencies with what they are saying. And if you compare it with, their own interviews, their own words, and even their own time frames overlap. So it's, I'm looking into this almost 2 months now, and I keep finding out new information, which keeps me in the game of asking these questions, because I wasn't planning on creating the Manson Cases Instagram, a website. It just came along just because I figured if I made one video, that you can't just make one video on this, because there's just so much information. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. There's so much to this. I mean, it's like you jump down a rabbit hole when you start looking at this, and then it's shocking how deep this goes. It's really shocking.
Yeah,
And I don't know what led me to hear like, quote unquote, the conspiracy theories, as they put it on some YouTube channels, because I watched some YouTube videos that were, I guess you can say anti-Manson. They were just going with the media narrative. But once you actually look into it, the history, and see that a lot of these people knew each other, and they're not saying that stuff, and no one's mentioning that in the reports, it does look like there was some sort of conspiracy here which is why it's mentioned in Marilyn Manson's lawsuit. So I'm not surprised. I think a lot of people will be surprised with this case because so far it looks like he has a there. This isn't just a conspiracy. And that's what shocked me the most is it wasn't just a conspiracy as far as I can tell. With their relationship, you know, Evan and Manson, it was such a highly publicized relationship, at least here in the States, that you can dig up any article, information, interview, and compare and contrast it with what she said then, compare it with what she says now, or even what she's saying now in legal declarations versus interviews. And it's just not adding up. And it's not just Evan, it's people like Esme, it's Ashley Morgan Smith line. It's this weird, you know, Annie Abrams that disappeared, all these people. So it's not like one person. And that's where it's like, wow, like this is going to be a big deal.
Yeah. I think it was Chloe Black and we like to call her Crazy Portal Chick, and just because of that, I can't remember her name, but I think you know who I'm talking about.
Love Bailey. Love
Yeah.
Bailey.
Who is
And
it?
someone, yeah.
Who was
like,
it? Sorry.
Love Bailey.
Oh,
Claimed
yes.
that Manson summoned the portal because he splattered paintings all over his floor.
Love Bailey's the one that claims that Manson put a gun to her head and said that he doesn't like, I'll just say people, LGBTQ, you know. But
well, they've said like crazy stuff, like, I mean, they said I was just reading a day or two ago that Evan even claims that he's racist, he's a neo-Nazi. So she points to these old tattoos from her Instagram stories, and I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, you could say that stuff, but realize that symbols have a lot of meanings. And Marilyn Manson, once you look into his history, especially as a person and a band, they use a lot of symbolism and concepts in the band. So it wouldn't be surprising that she would misrepresent that. I mean, as far as I could tell from the history, that one of the tattoos she points out, she got while they were together. So, I mean, it's just bizarre stuff to claim that no one else has ever claimed in, what, 30 years of him as an artist. So there's just a lot of, it's crazy. There's a lot of questions I have. There's a lot of things that I think are being used as misinformation, even down to disinformation. And I'm really surprised he's only suing those two, likely because he's already in court with the others. So that'll be interesting to see if people like Esme and whatnot are then brought to court during this lawsuit.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if maybe down the road if he would file suits against the other ones as well, but I feel like right now he's going after, let's say, the ringleaders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, you bring those down, you know, that's the main focus. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens, you know, in the court and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he already has a lot of things on his plate right now as we speak, because, you know, he's 4 women has sued him and he's suing Evan and Ilma, so it's probably going to be a lot for next year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Oh, what I was going to say is I don't believe the trial actually starts until the end of 2023, from what I saw for Evan and Ilma Gore. And that could always change. It could always, you know, change. It happened with Johnny Depp, where because of COVID, it was pushed off. So it's very likely this might not really take off until 2024.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say too. Is that I think this will go definitely into 2024. You know, as much as we want it to be over, like now, but realistically, the courts have a process, and like they have to go through all these hurdles to even get to a trial. So, you know, like right now, we're coming up on what the anti-SLAPP for Evan and Ilma. See if that makes it through, and then they're going to proceed further from there.
Yeah.
What I found interesting, I don't know if you guys ever had a chance to read the anti-SLAPP that both of them want removed, but they also, I think it was Evan, specifically wanted the FBI document removed. So I'm like, without a real explanation outside of when I received this, I believed it to be true. Well, who else would you receive it from? You see what I mean? Like, if there's a real FBI investigation, who else would you have received it from? And I don't know if you two are aware, but FBI investigations, you can request a Freedom of Information Act, which I did, and they do not confirm or deny. So you do not even know if they're investigating him or Evan. So I know out here, sometime last year, they're already reporting the FBI was investigating him. Well, how would they know if they can't confirm or deny? It's the perfect grift to put in a documentary because they can't confirm or deny. So it's like, it's great theatrics, but is it actually true? And that's another question.
Right. Yeah. We know that that Evan Rachel Wood, Gore, whoever, forged a signature of somebody who was an FBI agent, and this was a real agent. But they said that they never, filled out this form. That's not their signature. So, I mean, that's pretty deep. That's pretty deep stuff.
Yeah.
And I know, Ella, you wanted to talk a little bit more about Manson's lawsuit. Like, was there anything in particular you wanted to point out about it, aside from the FBI letter?
Yeah, just basically that it was scripted because he did include pictures of the, I think, text messages and the script and some forms of what they were going to say and whatnot, which I think is crazy. Because if this was a coincidence, this wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, his lawsuit kind of like blew my mind. Like, I mean, I knew this was, a big thing, but I had no idea how big it was until I read his lawsuit. And if anyone doesn't know how to access it and wants to read it, if you go to Manson's Twitter or his Instagram, he has a link in his bio that you can click on it to read. I think it's like, what, a 20-page lawsuit?
I think so too.
Yeah, it's very long. I would be curious to know, and we'll probably not know until the trial comes, how he got the screenshot of her message to whoever it was, Evan, discussing, basically scripting the FBI letter. I'm really curious on how that came about. And what's interesting is if there really was an FBI investigation, would it have come from that? Because all we know is, a media report that says that, the FBI was investigating and that the Los Angeles PD came and apparently took some electronics. So it's very interesting because it's not just him being alleged, or how do I say this? It's not him just suing for defamation. There is a lot. He's emotional distress is the first one. So technically it is a defamation, but it's also the first, thing he's suing for is for emotional distress. But then in California, I guess you can actually sue for 2 criminal acts, and I think those are the ones going at Elmagore. I'm not sure if it's specific to Evan, for the hacking in social media, and it's still crazy to me, like just reading this stuff and like, wow, you have an FBI agent who does exist, who claims it's not real, and that the department that was written on the letter does not exist. And I'm just floored that the media really is just kind of, they reported it and then they're like, let's continue reporting on Evan, just kind of like we reported on Amber, because we believe it to be true, or at least we want to make money to believe it's true. So, and that's all is how much money they're going to make. Even these people now who are talking about Depp, like, now that he's, I guess, innocent, they're still making money on both articles. Whether it's Amber Heard, positive, negative, Johnny Depp, positive, negative. They all make money either way.
Yeah. And about the text messages, he accessed them via, I'm assuming, someone from his legal team or someone he knows that can access this kind of stuff. And Ilma was stupid enough to say that those things were hers because they were on her hard drive. And
Wow.
she deleted that tweet, but thousands of people have seen it already. So they're
Mm-hmm.
doomed either way.
Mm-hmm.
And what's I don't know if you guys watch what they call Legal Tube with all the lawyers and whatnot, but what really like piqued my interest like that first day when I was trying to figure out like the actual accusations, the timeline, which was very hard to pinpoint. I watched some Legal Tube, so one of them being Legal Bites, and there was another one or two, I can't remember, maybe Legal Mindset. And they're kind of like, if this is true, it's more of a slam dunk because he actually would have more evidence, it sounds like. And they don't need to provide these exhibits, but it's putting them on notice like, hey, we have evidence that this is what we have. It doesn't mean that's everything. So I found that to be quite interesting. I also found interesting a lot of these YouTube channels that are, I don't want to say anti-Manson, but are reporting like the media narrative are kind of like poo-pooing like the checklist, like, oh, this isn't suspicious. Really? Like that is highly suspicious that people would create a checklist for stuff that they should remember if it actually happened. So, and then all this other stuff. So it always kind of irked me a little bit when I kind of looked into this and saw those, like, no one really dug into it. They just were commenting on what the media dug into, which was basically nothing. If they were really cared about the truth, they would be reporting these things, which are inaccurate, or at least are portraying something that doesn't match what the accusers are saying.
Yeah, definitely.
So have you guys seen Phoenix Rising?
I've seen part 1 and parts of part 2, not all of part 2.
I've seen like half of part 1.
Okay, so that was the next thing I watched. Because first, I think I explained, I started looking into like the websites trying to get a timeline, and that's what really kind of interested me. But I don't know if you guys recall, there was some Instagram stories Evan Rachel Wood had shared last February accusing Leslie Lane and his wife, Lindsay, of scheming to release these, I guess, blackmail of her, quote, underage. And I saw the screenshots in an article, and that's what really piqued my interest, was because I was watching this relationship play out in the media back then, because I myself was in my early 20s dating someone who was 20 plus years older. And it's still a little bit of a taboo to have those type of relationships. And so that relationship interested me. And she was sharing these photos, and I'm like, well, that's not surprising. Like, I've seen photos like this of her before. Like, I remember it being reported that she did this Nazi salute thing back when, like on the gossip blogs back then. But then the thing about her quoting underage or whatever, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense, because I know she was not underage when they were together. And that's really was like the first, I guess, hole that made me look into things. And then I decided to watch Phoenix Rising as I was still reading, all these discrepancies and interviews. And, I am a victim of DV, IPV, and I am recently diagnosed with PTSD. So one of the things as a habit, you always put yourself in the shoes of people who are explaining their, I guess their trauma, I guess you could say. But her behavior in Phoenix Rising, her gleefulness of explaining what was happening that you see, there was no tears. I mean, she might be a better actress in comparison to Amber Heard, but it just wasn't there. And then when you see her
too.
Yeah, and when you see her in interviews, like I saw her on the Drew Barrymore show, very happy to explain these things, moving her hands, and I'm like, I can't even say certain things without tears, let alone explain what like these terms like love bombing is, which, by the way, as a victim, you do not hear in counseling. These are terms they're literally Googling up and learning about. So those were red flags to me. So if I hadn't even looked into anything, if I just watched the documentary, that would have gave me red flags. So I'm surprised by hearing that some victims watch this and see that behavior and think it's normal. And maybe it's because we already have this mentality. We want to believe people who come forward. It's hard to come forward. It's hard to do anything about. But tie that into the timeline, tie that into the Metoo timeline as well. And, you know, the very first article where she claims the 2 essays, she's still talking positively about Manson and reconfirms that heart-shaped glasses is simulated. So it's
and
just,
she was a part of the planning too. She was there from the beginning. So it was her idea.
Exactly. And that's why I was like, well, this makes no sense. Like, and she also, I don't know if you guys are aware, she had her own hashtag movement she created that included Esme Bianco, Ashley Walters.
The I'm Not Okay one?
Yep. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that she had this hashtag because it wasn't a big thing like the Me Too movement was or the Time's Up. And it just seems sketch, especially now that we know that Amy Berg, the producer of Phoenix Rising, was in contact with Evan Rachel Wood, you know, according to the declaration and according to Amy Berg herself, either in 2018 or as early as 2019, with the intention to name Manson. So once you add all these things together, it doesn't seem like what Manson is saying about a conspiracy is wrong. And it just, you know, to read all the articles she puts out about PTSD, now that I know I have PTSD, I now know what these are. She's explaining the very severe, I have what you would consider severe symptoms, but her symptoms, she goes above mine. Like she says she sees things, like unless you're in a war, like, and I don't say this for everyone because there are, you know, victims who do have these type of things, but like what she's describing and what she says she has isn't adding up to me. And she has an article, I think, in Nylon describing symptom on a checklist what PTSD is. PTSD, if you don't know, is one of the easiest faked mental health disorders. In fact, even though I have a diagnosis, because I used to be in the military, I have a diagnosis from my service in the military having to do with a relationship when I was in the military. If I want to claim benefits for my disability, even though I have the PTSD diagnosis, I still have to have the diagnosis from a psychiatrist. Even though I'm already diagnosed from the military, they still have to confirm it again because it's one of the easiest faked mental health diagnoses. So I find a lot of these little things, you know, them showing pictures of themselves crying, and the therapy, I don't know if you know what pictures I'm talking about with her crying. Talking about the therapy. That is one of the therapies that was not recommended for me for PTSD. They do it, but most people drop out of it because it will take years. So I know it's a rapid eye movement therapy. It's not like, again, it's all these weird, like why would you take a picture of yourself crying and then smiling for going to trauma therapy? It's bizarre behavior to me. It just adds. And, you know, I'm willing to be objective. However, when I look at what I'm seeing right now, it's not adding up. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not. And it would be one thing if she was actually diagnosed with PTSD, but I have a feeling that she's not, because I know people who have PTSD, and I'm not an expert, but what she describes is just really weird to me. It's really odd, and I think it's because I guess you can say she is an abuser who likes to victimize herself. What a surprise. And it's those kinds of people that likes to over exaggerate and say things just that are necessary to just fill out, like Esme and Ashley Morgan did in their lawsuits, and Amber Heard did in not in court, but I think it was in 2016 as well, when they in her deposition. And their body language is either it doesn't match or it's over exaggerated.
Right. Mm-hmm. Because she's, I mean, I know I've talked about Evan, but she's just overly excited, like gleeful on, you know, these shows to be talking about these things. And I'm like, you know, that's why I'm like, it doesn't match. Like, you know, to me, it gives me red flags, like red alert. And these things about love bombing, gaslighting, this, that, I'm like, I have never heard these terms described in therapy. Like, and you know, I've heard of gaslighting, but like, I've never heard them like brought up in such a way where she's constantly talking about these things. These are signs, but like a therapist doesn't talk to you in that way.
No.
Right. She's done her research, and she's even, I believe, admitted to that she's done a lot of research and looking into things. And you're absolutely right. Like, I went to therapy, and those terms were not used, not at all. My therapist diagnosed me with having PTSD as well, but I never went to a psychiatrist, so I never got the official diagnosis. But I can say, based off of my experience, and to compare it to Evan, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
Like the way she opened up, what was it, Phoenix Rising? She was like, I'm here to talk about Marilyn Manson, otherwise known as Brian Warner. And she had the biggest smile on her face when she said it. And if you're going to talk about something as serious as sexual abuse, domestic violence, and everything else, you're not going to be gleeful and happy about it.
No.
I mean, it, like you said, it's a huge red flag right there. And it just continues with her. And it, you know, Esme Bianco was sort of the same way. Like, her body language didn't match up with what she was saying. When she did her, what was it, Good Morning America, or
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, her interview, that didn't line up either.
No.
Not at all.
Yeah, same with Ashley Smithline. I know we talk about her a lot on this channel, but we all know she's a train wreck, so her body language does not match at all.
Oh, so I got something for you if you guys don't know about her. While I was researching into this, I may or may not have found a full name, Ashley Morgan Smithline, suing another company in California right now.
What a surprise.
Really?
Yeah, I have to find where I saved it because I was going to kind of keep it in the pocket because it's really hard to confirm those things unless I can pay to, in California, you have to pay to get some of these like lawsuits and whatnot. Same exact name in California, suing some children's company. And I'm like, that's interesting. And that kind of, you know, once you add on, you know, wasn't she being, correct me if I'm wrong, because I couldn't find it once I saw it. Wasn't she being sued at one point by Tom, the ex-fiance?
I believe, yeah, I'm not sure exactly who sued who with that. I'm pretty sure Ashley's attorney had asked, like, put a cease and desist on him or something of the like. And I know they were going back and forth in litigation and things like that. So I can't say for sure who sued who, but she did have some legal issues going on with
And
Tom
I remember
Bibby.
yes, and I remember the time when I actually saw that in the last 2 months. It was right after the accusations came out, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks after was the date on the legal document. But if he posted it, it was probably where I saw it. I don't believe it's no longer like posted anywhere. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't imagining it.
Oh, no, you're not. Like, I don't know for sure, but I would have to think that maybe that one is put behind them. There's so much on Ashley, and the reason why we focused so much on Ashley was because that's what we started off in the beginning to do. Like,
But we were shut down like 3 times.
You what?
We were shut down like 3 times.
Really?
Oh,
Wow.
yes. And our theory is that it was Ashley Smithline who had us shut down. You know, like, there was, what was it, a few months conversation between an anonymous source and Ashley Smithline that landed into our lap, basically. And in this conversation, Ashley had sent there was a lot of things in this conversation, but Ashley had sent a photo to this anonymous source, basically that she said she was using court against Marilyn Manson as evidence. And she had like brunette colored hair in the picture, and it looked like maybe like hair dye, like she had just dyed her hair and it bled down her neck or something of the sort. And she was trying to say that that was, you know, from abuse. Well, I don't know if you saw that post, Lisa, but every time
Is it the bite mark?
What?
Is it the bite mark?
No, not the Pinterest stock photo. This was different. It was supposed to be the back of her head. She was in a car. If it was even her in the photo. And
that's hard to say, honestly.
Yeah. It's almost like how Esme Bianco, you know, put out that photo of her back. You can't, you know, verify that it's them because you can't see their face. But nonetheless, every single time we had posted that photo on Instagram, within hours, our account got shut down. And
at least a day, I would say.
Yeah, it was immediate. It was immediate. And we did that twice with our originally exposing Ashley Smithline account and then our exposing Ashley Smithline 2 account. Both of them got shut down as soon as we posted that, like Ella said, within hours of the day. And so our theory is that it was Ashley Smithline herself that had us shut down because, you know, we were essentially showing whoever was looking what she was planning on using against Marilyn Manson in court.
Yeah. Wow. I have not seen that screenshot. I did see the bite mark, and I was like, "What?" She posted that on her Instagram story, as if no one could Google Lens that. Like, so it does certainly, like the Esme Bianco, and I will say this. So back when I was 18, I actually did some modeling work, and one of the things I got paid for was, I don't know what it's called now, but it was basically like a Japanese bondage thing. It was more fine.
Shibaru?
What was it?
Shibaru, I think it's called Shibaru.
Yes, that's what it is. And it was tastefully done, you know, what do they call it? Like fine art. And so I know what rope looks like, and that looks like rope. So
we've included that too before. So
yeah, so I'm not embarrassed to say I know what rope looks like on skin. So that is not like, if you're whipped, that is not what a whip looks like. I do not know what marks look like, but I know that is not whip marks.
No. I mean, whip marks rip up. I mean, whips rip up your skin even, so it's gonna last for months.
It probably would have scarred her if it was a real whip, or any of these women that claimed that they were whipped. So,
and it would definitely have been visible.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, and this is just my personal, like, this is not a speculation warning, you know. I believe this is like a perfect storm right now. You have, at least in America, like, he's considered the boogeyman. He has been for nearly 30 years. He has Christian groups against him, parents, especially from 30 years ago. So I don't know if he'll get the kind of fair coverage that he'll get like Johnny Depp did on that Christian right, like Fox News and whatnot. But also, if it is publicized, maybe so, because it's one of that right-wing, I guess you could say, talking points is the Metoo movement, and some of the faults with that. I am someone who does support the Metoo movement. The problem I have with it is what it turned into, like this believe all women thing. When it turns to that to me is just, it's not fair. Not everyone is truthful. And then when you point that out, it's such a small percentage. So what is that percentage? When I looked it up, there is a large amount of men, in America at least, that do get accused. And it was like 20-something million. So that small percentage, and that was just, I believe, the percentage that purposely make false allegations of, I can't remember the specifics. I'll have to find it. There was a good breakdown. There's only been really just a few handfuls of studies, and that was the recent one based on the 2019 or 2020 population. And it was something like they broke down this large amount of numbers of how many are accused of child things. abuse and whatnot, and they were innocent. But unless you have, the means, the money, the woman will always be believed when it comes with children, right? So it was an interesting thing to look into, because I was looking into some of these claims by Esme and Evan about, it takes 7 to 10 years to process trauma. It takes 7 to 10 years. And I'm like, I've never heard of such a thing. So when I looked into it, the only thing I could find where it mentions 7 years and a little bit over is with children. The younger the child is that was SA'd, the longer it takes for them to come forward. That's the only thing I could find where it takes 7 years, or quote, to process. It takes, the younger the child, it could take 7+ more years to come forward. So I don't know where they're getting this 7 to 10 years thing that they both repeat. I don't
know. I mean, the 7 to 10 years thing, or even longer, I can understand that with like R. Kelly, because we all know it's not the same thing, but we all know that he groomed children, and it took them probably more than 20 years to come forward. Because they were scared of him and because they were groomed so long. But these women, they're just using these terms to sound credible. They're not being truthful.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it still blows my mind, like, because when I was looking into this, I swear I had a few like existential crisis, like, okay, am I wrong here? But then I would be like, well, no, clearly there's a lie here and here. And then I would keep finding more, but then I would stop and have to think, okay, am I wrong here? Because I felt really, I guess, guilty, because I hopped on that train. But again, I was not feeling well. I had other things going on in my life. So I had no interest to look into it. I stopped listening to Marilyn Manson, but then again, once I looked into everything to kind of get a picture, it was like, oh crap. But how many people are going to take that time who have these busy lives? And, I can't say mine is busy, but if you're working like a 9-to-5 job, you have families and whatnot, you're going to believe what the media tells you, because you're going to believe that they look into these accusations. And it doesn't appear to me that they've been fair. Like Rolling Stone, for sure, saying they had this thorough investigation. But where's the information from all these other people that told them very positive things that conflicts with all this other information? Case in point, Dan Cleary, who says he was a personal assistant. One source told me it's not exactly what he was doing. And when I looked into it, I can't say for sure, but he did get credits on the Pale Emperor album that came out in 2015, which is the time frame he claims to have worked for Manson.
Yeah,
I believe it was
a guitar tech for the tour or something. So
yeah,
so their relationship is stripped down to, I guess you can say, professional.
Right, and not only that, the first tweet, the one that's elevated a lot, in September 2020. What I found an interview that Loudwire had contacted him in September 2020 before any accusations from any woman came forward. And he mentions in that interview, in that quote, that he was speaking out for all the women making accusations. But wait a minute. Now this article was published months later on February 1st. But the article details that this interview happened in September. How would he know?
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I saw him tweet about that in September of 2020. Like, I saw the tweet, but I didn't see it in Loudwire. But I actually saw where he had said that in September 2020. And I thought that was odd too, because, it's like, that's like basically predicting the future, or, hey, he knows something.
Yeah, so I'll send you guys that article, because I just posted it on Twitter the other day, because I did this thread on Dan Cleary. But that was the thing that's like, well, wait a minute. How would he know in September 2020 that there were several women that would come forward? He didn't say, they're going to come forward in the future. He's implying that there are several women right now talking about this. No one was talking about Marilyn Manson and making accusations in September 2020. And then Colonel Kurtz did an interview. Oh, excuse me. She didn't do an interview, but she shared his Patreon episode where he discusses why he came forward. And his reasoning was something about someone had just been assaulted, something to that effect that inspired him. And he had saw a post on Twitter where all these women, or people, I should say, were calling this woman a liar because she had posted about Manson. Now, I don't know about you. I never heard about a post about Manson being accused in September 2020. But, there was a post by Ilma Gore that is now deleted, directly right at Manson. That's also on my Twitter. So there's all these little things.
About the tag on the wall. Everyone sees the tag on the wall. Or was that what Amber Heard had said?
That was Amber Heard that said that.
Was it Amber Heard? Okay.
Yeah, this one was about she tagged Marilyn Manson about all these bot activity or something, and maybe she should use a VPN. That was hours before his little thread. So, and on top of that, if you remember, his tweet says he worked directly for Manson. That doesn't seem to be the case either. And on top of which, he claimed to have firsthand information, even in the Loudwire magazine. And lo and behold, in this Patreon, he says basically it's all gossip. It's all secondhand. He didn't hear it first. You know what I mean? It's not. He didn't hear it.
I think Colonel Kurtz did a video on that where she reacted to it, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's the exact video I found, and I'm like, wait, journalists are taking secondhand gossip words. Now, this guy also then happens to appear in October 2020 in Phoenix Rising, who then makes these claims about how, Manson can, hack, basically, if you're on his Wi-Fi, they could hack his phone or laptop. I'm like, what? That was, so it just kind of seems scripted at that point. So my question is, when did they contact Dan? Because it sounds to me, now that there are people coming forward saying like Rita and who was the other one, Paula?
There's two Paulas, yes.
Okay. And, Ilma reaching out to both of them. Is it possible that perhaps if he was reached out to, or at least inspired by the tweet, but then why would he make up this thing about the whole, I really don't believe that Marilyn Manson, the 50-plus-year-old man, and I don't say this to be ageist, knows how to hack things. I don't think that's anywhere near his radar, and if it is, I would be shocked. And I'll be the first to say I'm wrong if they could prove that to be true, but I just can't believe that he knows how to hack people and hack social media. I consider myself very, good at technology. Even I don't know how to do that. That requires skill, training. So, I don't know. I just find it all like, it just keeps piling on, like, and people believe it because they don't really know. They don't look into anything because, of course, they're not going to. They're going to believe the sources. But Phoenix Rising is just full of misinformation, and that Twitter thread is just full of further misinformation, such as that one video. That was her name, Camila.
Yeah.
This video is evidence. She shared it on the Phoenix Rising. I'm like, that was a video in an introduction on his website. If really,
right. And on our page, Truth for Manson on Instagram, like I had just posted yesterday the video clip from Colonel Kurtz's interview with Marilyn Manson's former assistant Paula, and she debunks that. She goes in and says, that video wasn't real. Like she saw the full unedited version. She saw Evan getting the fake blood in her face for drama, and she said Evan was really into that. She was into the whole recording of it. Like, back then, it's like Evan really into more dark, twisted things, like the same kind of things Manson was into. But now she's trying to claim opposite.
Yeah, and I think she even said that she was proud of that video more than she's ever been proud of anything in her life.
Yeah, I did see that in an interview.
So that doesn't make any sense. It was an acting job. Come on.
And it's so shocking. Like, do these people not expect that there would be witnesses willing to come forward to be like, hey, that's not true? But if it's anything like, if I have to look at the Johnny Depp trial, they're going to just claim, oh, you're loyal to him. Doesn't mean it's not true.
Right.
So.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But we can probably assume, based off of Manson's lawsuit, that he has a lot. He has to have a whole lot of evidence, because he only gave like a little snippet of what he has. Like, you have, like, who knows what we're going to find out in the future? Like, I bet he has a whole lot that is on his side that could help vindicate him in court.
Right. I hope so, and I think so too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I just, to me, I think the best thing I've heard about his lawsuit is like he didn't need to include these exhibits. It's not required. It's basically putting it on blast that yes, he has evidence. So I
Yeah.
firmly believe that not only does he have evidence, it'll probably blow him in the water. I mean, I'm really, based on what I hear lawyers and attorneys say, and I'm not an expert, if they're saying this, that it's even more, than the Johnny Depp trial, I just hope they make it live for people to watch.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, I would respect it if they didn't, but it would be entertaining to watch and interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, not
Right.
just that. It would help Manson, with his career. Like, he
Right.
has so many people against him now under false pretenses, sort of like how Johnny Depp did. And I feel like Manson would almost need that to be televised to prove to the world that he's not what Evan and crew claim he is.
Yeah,
Like, I think that's important for him in his career.
I think
Yeah,
so too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what's the misinformation and disinformation is just people just failing to research basic things. They don't even know that Manson uses a lot of symbolism, or that Marilyn Manson is a persona to start.
Yeah.
So if they don't even know just those two basic things, I can't take them seriously. So when I look at all these media reports, I'm a little sketch on it. But the way I look at Marilyn Manson's case compared to Johnny Depp's, I think Johnny Depp had a little bit more leeway until the op-ed, because the accusations were already out there. But we didn't have this cultural Metoo movement, as well as we didn't have that op-ed a year after the Metoo movement had started. With Manson, he's this, quote, scary-looking guy that had an album called Antichrist Superstar. So, of course, take that with what you will. And so he was dropped immediately from roles, everything, the very same day, no due process. Now he has to prove that he's innocent instead of, perceiving to be innocent until proven guilty. And I really don't like these type of cases, especially with celebrities, because how many of it can you trust in a business that's meant to make money and to be seen? And I hate to put it on that kind of pedestal, but it's true. So I'm just really eager, and I can't believe it's going to be like a year or two away before we actually see the court play out.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I hate that it's going to be dried out, but I think it's good they're, getting somewhere at least with this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
If
definitely.
anything, it gives them more time to collect evidence.
Right.
From what I understand, and this is just from a source, Manson is one of these people that saves everything. So if that's true,
Good on him. Good on him.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you guys have looked at posts from Stand By or Manson.
Yeah.
And seen a lot of the stuff that isn't in the public, but they have access to. So I'm seeing old posts from Evan Rachel Wood's Facebook. And if you look at the time, it'll say like 7 years ago. That means it was saved a few years ago. So someone thought to save those posts from how many years ago before the accusations came out, because clearly it was building for quite a while. Because I remember in 2018, people were already speculating Manson was one of her abusers.
Yeah,
So
right.
if that's the case, that was very smart, because I mean, now she has no Twitter account, and where she would say positive things about him there as well. So no one could deep dive that. Like yesterday, I think it was, I found a post where she wished someone, you're in my thoughts, and it was around the time frame of his mother's passing in 2015. So I mean, these little things that people can scrutinize, all you got to do is delete their social account, right? So yeah, I'll keep saying it. I'm still floored by this because it's so bizarre, and it really looks like what he's saying has legs, because I've done my own research into it, because not to say I don't trust anyone, but I need to see it for myself and do the research. But I think he's right. I think there really is a conspiracy. You know, she had her own nonprofit that, if you guys don't know, she dissolved this year. And she has yet to tell anyone that. She put in February to get rid of the Phoenix Act nonprofit. So, but then afterwards, she's on these interviews where she's being asked about it. Are you going to go to these states? Well, it doesn't exist anymore, or it's not going to. So how are you doing any work in it?
Oh, wow. I see. I thought it was just the website that was down. I didn't know, like, she tried to dissolve the entire thing.
Right.
I mean,
so
yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me, because at first it was super important to her, but
mhm.
now it's not. So I think I would like to think that if it's so important to her, why would she do all that?
Right.
And
So
allow any of that to happen?
yeah. So if you guys, I realized I never even mentioned this. I used to be a debt collector, and I used to work in the military for quite a while in human resources. So I'm aware of what's public record and what's not, which is why I looked. And she was supposed to renew in May in California, into May of this year. And when I checked after her deadline, they put in her dissolution paperwork. They mean it's pending, and it shows the request with her own signature in February. So either she was anticipating the lawsuit, because likely I think he might have even filed against her nonprofit, or maybe it was mentioned. I don't know. But what's hilarious about her nonprofit is she used LegalZoom. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's definitely not recommended if you're going to create a nonprofit, because she had all the roles and responsibilities as her and Ilma Gore, which, from my experience with nonprofits, is not something you want to do. And if you're being sued, you actually want to have your shit straight. And it wasn't. I couldn't find what's called a 990 form, which is public information, which will tell you how much that nonprofit has made or how much they had spent. So they didn't file that, but now that they're dissolving, they have 3 years to do that if they don't do it initially every year. So maybe they don't need to file it. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it. But I don't know if I trust her reports to the state, because it says she really didn't make a lot of money. And I'm really surprised. But if, it sounds like a project between her and Ilma Gore, that maybe, they're inexperienced with nonprofits, that maybe they just didn't know how to fundraise. I'm going to assume it's more that than anything.
Yeah.
But I just found it interesting because I watched an interview in February or March where they asked her specifically if she was going to bring the Phoenix Act to every state. But now if you contact their email, their website's gone, all this other stuff, it's gone. It's not around.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, you can look it up yourself.
One thing I wanted to say was, isn't part of the Phoenix Act, wasn't it, she was trying to pass some kind of legislature where if you had 3 or more accusers, that it would change the statute of limitations? Like, it had something to do with multiple accusers.
Right. So my understanding, one of the things she wanted to add, and it did not get added, was if there were 3 or more people that made accusations, that person would get arrested. And that made me like,
That's crazy.
Interesting.
That's absolutely batshit crazy.
And I'm like, okay. But what I also found in my research, and unfortunately I don't have the name of the bill in front of me, there was a law in California that passed in, I think, 2019, in response to the Metoo movement, that extended the timeline already. I'll have to look into it to see what it was, because it's one of the, I believe, if I recall correctly, it's one of the things that Esme and Ashley Walters and all them are using to sue Manson. But the thing is, it keeps dropping because it doesn't go back to, you know what I mean? They didn't backdate it.
Yeah, it's not retroactive.
Right. So I'm kind of like, that adds to that conspiracy of maybe there was more here. Because You know,
I'm sure there
clearly,
was. I'm sure there
yeah,
was more.
clearly at first, Evan, like I said in the beginning, Evan clearly said in the Rolling Stone article in 2016 positive things about Manson. In the same article, she claims the R, but 2 times in her life. But now in her declaration that she posted against Manson in response, she's been R-worded several times. And whatever happened to the bar owner? You see what I mean? Like, what happened to this? It only happened 2 times in her life. Now it's, and these are very egregious accusations of torture. I could go down the line, but everyone knows. So it's just the story keeps changing, and
that's
even
a pathological liar.
And even her story, how she courageously left him before the Ides of March in 2010. Well, you have a problem there. It didn't start filming until February 2011. And she wasn't even cast in it until the end of October 2010, where he was already being pictured several times and in video dating his now wife. So you see what I mean? And I actually have a magazine. I paid some money for some magazines just to have for my work on the website, where she talks about their breakup and great things about it. We're still friends. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. I hear phantasmagoria isn't happening. So it's just a lot of BS to me at this point.
Yeah.
I'm like, I never planned to have a YouTube, an Instagram, a Twitter, Manson, or even a website, but here I am because I just find it especially egregious. Like, it wasn't like I was planning on creating a YouTube and doing something else entirely, but then I figured once I create one video, the next video is gonna be Manson, and then the next video is gonna be Manson. So I'm like, I might as well just turn it into a Manson thing because I don't want to do something like this long term.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with our YouTube channel, except we came up with the idea when we started our first Instagram account, I should say. But it's nothing we probably want to make profits off of, so to speak. We just want to reach out to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I'll let you get back. I know I kind of steered the conversation in a different direction, but I just wanted to tell you guys because, like, I know I don't like put a lot of that information out there. It's not like I'm trying to.
I think it's good that what you're doing, though. I think it's great.
Thanks. It's kind of weird because I think what really fueled it too, and I know I didn't really mention this earlier, was anytime I brought up to some people about this, like, he says, why would multiple people lie? Like, everyone questioned it. Every single one I mentioned it to was questioning it. And I convinced 2 people so far to keep an open mind. And that's so good. Far, what I showed them, they're like, okay. But like anyone I mentioned this, and I don't know if it's because it's that multiple accusation angle or if it's because it's Manson, but I think it's both.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but I think it's the whole believe all women too.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with the gender of the accusers.
Yeah. And that's why I don't really like Metoo. I think it started out as a good thing, but now people are just abusing the power of the privilege of being a woman because no one will question them.
And I think that's a form of abuse in itself, right? Because definitely. You are claiming power. Because you're claiming to be a victim of this person when in fact it's just a way to continue the abuse.
Yeah, right.
I don't consider myself a consistent Manson fan. When Manson came out, I was listening to the Spice Girls, right? So
wow, the contrast.
Yes. So it was like, the year 2000 when Hollywood was coming out. That's when I took notice, really. I heard of his music. The Dope Show was pretty big, I think, in the United States here. I was surprised to learn. Yeah, I was surprised to learn that Antichrist Superstar was huge. Like, I didn't know that was his biggest album. I had no idea because it's not my favorite one. So, yeah, I was very surprised to learn that Antichrist Superstar was his top. And I think Mechanical Animals was next, but then Hollywood is still, one of my favorite, like, top 10 albums. And it was one of those albums I listened to all the time. That and Mechanical Animals, I bought them at the same time. I still remember buying them with the band Garbage and another band in Toronto called Biff Naked. Really good music. But so, you know, after that, I remember seeing the Heart-Shaped music video, Heart-Shaped Glasses, and I was like, I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
It wasn't really like, I didn't really, I guess, get reintroduced to his music until 2015 when The Pale Emperor came out. And that one, I think, was like perfect. Like, I could listen to every
song.
Yeah. And this guy has always had rumors about him. So it's like, which one's true and which one's fake? Because I don't know if you guys remember, or even if you know, well, maybe Beatrice. I'm not sure if you must be near my age or a little bit older. I'm 37.
Okay, I'm just older than you. I'm 39.
Okay. You know, people back in the 90s, the mid 90s, when Antichrist Superstar came out, he was being reported, like police reports saying he sacrificed animals on stage.
Oh yeah.
I read that, so I'm.
And everyone's heard the rib cage story where he, you know, took a rib cage. I heard that, and I think I was in middle school or something. And
the first time I read that, I was like, "What the fuck?"
I didn't even have a computer. I didn't even have a computer, and I heard that rumor. So, and I still have a memory of arguing with the girl who told me that. I'm like, he didn't do that. I didn't even know who he was, but I know it wasn't true. Like,
how are you supposed to do that yourself? You would have to have medical records to do that because it's a surgical procedure to remove an entire rib. So.
I mean, it's bizarre, all the rumors about him. Like, what else was there? Was the police used to go to his show with a camera. I remember that in the 90s. They used to go to his show trying to find something to arrest him on.
Yeah, and he was undercover police in the audience of his concerts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
So if you think of it in a weird way, it's kind of come full circle. He's having rumors once again. Very egregious, serious ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these people claim that they can tell the artist. I mean, you can separate the art from the artist, and I'm obviously like, no, you can't. We can.
Yeah,
you're basing this shit off a persona that he built, and the rumors that he got because of it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this, let's say everything works out well, do you think this will change his persona?
Oh. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like over time he's sort of, and I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say this, but sort of mellowed a little.
Yeah,
a little.
Soften up.
Like, you know, whenever he gets out on stage, it's more just about performing the song, not so much as like antics on stage. So, I kind of feel like it'll just be more the same, you know, but, you know, I think he might be more cautious with like who he would invite, say, on a tour bus to hang out with him or something. But, you know, I feel like he's going to focus more on his family, like with Lindsay and their cats and things. But I kind of feel like the extreme shock part of him has sort of subsided a little over time. Like it was extremely strong in the 90s and then sort of kind of went down a little. Like he's still amazing. He's still amazing. In my opinion, he doesn't need the shock to be amazing. But yeah, I feel like he's going to still be himself.
Yeah, and I also think that if everything goes well for him, he's going to write an album about all this.
Oh yeah, for sure. It better be
like.
I
bet it's gonna be badass.
It better be like a best-selling album for all this shit, right?
Yeah.
Like release it after. I mean, how cathartic would that be?
It would be like a bitch slap in their faces.
For sure.
Yeah, it's so hard to
Victim is Cheek Part 2 coming up.
Yeah, it's so hard to see. Like, it seems so far out, you know, a year and a half, 2 years to know. But I personally have the confidence that he's going to do just fine.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, same here. Me too. He can do it. He's made it through everything else so far.
Yeah.
He made it through Columbine. He made it through the extreme Christians. You know, he made it through just a career of judgment. You know, so he can do
I
this.
admire him for that. I really do.
Oh, me too. Absolutely.
You know, what I really like about him is that it's funny how if you look at some of his interviews, even during the We Are Chaos, his latest album, he talks about, you know, just being yourself, how you always have this problem being and even he had these problems of being himself, even after all these years. And I think that's what initially led me to liking his music and ultimately following him for as long as I have, even though there was like albums I'm like, whatever. You know, I don't consider myself, quote, this, quote, super fan that they're going to start labeling us as for talking about Manson and questioning.
I've been labeled that and so many other nasty names since 2018 even, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, I just, you know, I just think he's a very talented artist and a very misunderstood with a lot of misinformation attached to him.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand or even realize or bother to even look into the fact that there's a lot of concepts, symbols in his music, tattoos even, and they kind of just ride with that as fact. Because why not?
That is pathetic and sad in a way, because they refuse to look into it.
I really, I enjoy the occult mysticism, where he's not a Satanist. He considers himself more of how do I pronounce this? Nihilist, that is interested in occult type things, you know, art, music. And I'm sure you guys might know about the symbolism with 15. I've read that a couple times in recent days. And I found that interesting, and it reminded me, I'm like, oh, I think this is one of the stories that I forgot about of why I got interested in him in the first place. Because where I live in a very conservative part of New York. And growing up, they had what's called like a summer Christian school type thing. So they would come to our park where we lived and he would do like a summer school, or my mom would take us. And we weren't like a Christian type of family. We weren't going to, you know, church on Easter, but it was a very confusing time when you are a child hearing these things that God is in your thoughts. He knows what you're thinking. And I was feared, like to death of any thought I had. Like I feared this, you know, godlike mentality. And when I asked my grandmother, I remember at a very young age, asked her, why do I have to believe in God? She got angry and said, because I have to. And that was kind of what got me interested in all these other religions and I guess mysticism, occult type stuff. And, you know, as a teenager, when I started listening to Manson, I was still very heavily interested in reading books on the stuff. You know, I remember my grandmother calling my very religious aunt to tell me it was the devil. And it was a book on theology. That's it. It was a book on the history of religion. And caused a lot of problems when I was younger. But I liked his stories about the number 15 because I felt in my life, I've always had the number 3. Have you guys ever had any weird things like that?
My number's 13.
I haven't really grown up in a religious home, so I don't have anything like that.
You're lucky.
I guess I am.
Yeah, and you know, especially here, I don't know about how it is over there politically. It's used politically here too as a weapon. I would say maybe not with everyone, but it certainly is from my experience. But you know, I really generally don't care what anyone believes, which is interesting. It's used against me. So I don't know. I think that's really what got me interested in Marilyn Manson, just because I felt like I had someone that understood that. I mean, it's the only book to this day I've stayed up all night and read the book, even though most of it's fictitious.
Yeah. I mean,
But
that's what we've all been trying to tell people, but they're like they just turn a blind eye to it. So I've sort of given up.
yeah, so that's why, I've noticed, me personally, and maybe it's because I was in the military where I had to deal with a lot of fact. I just like to take their words and use it against them.
Yeah.
So if they have an interview and it conflicts with another thing they said, well, why is it different here and here?
Right.
And I think that was a very good strategy in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, because it's her own words used against her, and that's how people stammer, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's like Ashley Smithline did that. In for the People magazine, she had said that Marilyn Manson carved his initials on her outer thigh. Then when we see Phoenix Rising Part 2, she says that the initials are carved in her inner thigh. So, I mean, even stuff like that, like those are her words both times, but two conflicting stories.
Right.
Right. And that is because she's also a pathological liar, because pathological liars just add more lies.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
that's,
think
that's
Even when
her
their story clashes. So
yeah.
I think personally, if you use their own words against them, you don't have to attack them for anything else. It speaks volumes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Because then it's who's gonna, argue what the accuser says, right? Or what Manson says or something. If this is what they said, that's why I like to point out stuff Evan said years ago, or what Manson even said, because what they're saying in, how many years ago? God, like 15 years ago now. They don't have, like, why would they lie? They had no reason to lie 15 years ago. Is it possible they lied about some things so it's not in the public? Sure. But then you have the question, were they lying then or were they lying now? And why were they lying then or why are they lying now? I think people don't realize it's super simple, right?
Right.
And when there's all this talk about blackmail and whatnot, okay, what were you gonna be blackmailed for? Like, I don't understand. Like, most people, when they're gonna be blackmailed, they'll also bring that to light, right?
Right.
So
Right.
where is it? And on top of that, if you look at the declaration for Evan, just as an example, all these threats apparently happens during the relationship. So there's no text, there's no emails, there's none of this. And then the last one
That's
happened.
word of mouth.
Yeah. And so the last one happened in 2014. Isn't it funny that it's word of mouth, but they claim he, hacked into social media and all this stuff? I also question that, because I believe when Evan's account was created, her Twitter account, it said it was created in, like, after their relationship. So you can actually go back and check to see when the account was created on Facebook and all this other stuff. Maybe not MySpace, but to make these claims and then not to have a way to actually match it up, it just, like I said, there's just a lot.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lot, and it's probably a lot more common.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in court, something like that would need to be proven. Like, you can't just, that's hearsay. We all know from that, from Johnny Depp's case, that's hearsay.
Objection, hearsay.
Yeah. They would have to have, a mega pint of evidence to back it up.
And, what's amazing is when you see all these women, at least on February 1st, come forward, they come forward with something, but it was taken at face value. Like, if this was an investigation by police, they would not do that, because you can't. You need metadata.
Right.
So, I mean, to
We've
show
done
a
a lot of
picture-
metadata research, actually.
Really?
On our account, yeah.
Yeah.
On all our accounts, basically.
But that's where I'm like, so you're going to show a screenshot of a conversation on a text message. Where'd you get it? Is it at, like, it's so easy these days to create these things that it's hard to say if they're true. That's why when, like, I know when I work on my website and everything, it's really hard for me to want to put some of the stuff that's screenshot out there. But at the same time, I can say, well, I can't verify this, but here's, why I can't verify it. for example, like that Twitter from Evan about Manson's mother's passing, or seemingly about her passing, I should say. Her Twitter isn't around anymore. And while I found a direct link, it's not in the web archive. But the article I found was created while it was happening, which is, once you embed the tweet, it's proof that it was once existed.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I can use that. So yeah, I'm just trying to present stuff in a way that's fair. Of course, I'm biased because I've already formed an opinion, but opinions can always change. So right now, there's this argument of if you are for Manson, for example, they tell you to wait for the trial, but these are people who already came to a conclusion that he's guilty.
Yeah.
So you're at this point where you're kind of doing this tap dance. So people are writing Evan is innocent, all these other people, but there are serious questions. There are holes. But we can't ask questions because we have to wait for a trial? It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't, my question is, why didn't they go to the police years ago when they started this thing in 2018, 2019, when they already knew this knowledge on who it was? Because they claim they came forward so no other no other person would be abused, but they waited years to come out with the information, but they didn't go to the police.
Mm-hmm.
They
I think they didn't go to the police because they didn't have any evidence.
Well, that's the thing, though. It conflicts with Evan and Esme's congressional testimony, where they claimed to have evidence. So, you see what I'm saying? Like, they claim to have come forward, so no other person has this experience. But they purposely waited years while they were going to senators, they were going to a documentarian, they went to social media and journalists before going to the police. So
that's what I don't understand.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting timeline that will likely come up in court, because I know that's my question. And then Evan claims to have went to this famous lawyer, Gloria something, to try and sue the person. I think this was part of one of her congressional testimonies, but she was told in her, this is her big story in Phoenix Rising, she was told that the only way she could is if she changed the law. But Los Angeles County has some sort of, I don't know what they call it, where they will investigate anything no matter how long ago it was. And I'm sure if she went to a lawyer, they would have told her that.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it still doesn't add up. If you're truly worried that this person is harming people physically, sexually, in any other capacity, why is your first person Amy Berg, the documentarian?
Exactly.
Like, you see what I'm saying? You can't tell me none of these people benefited from from accusing Marilyn Manson. It doesn't have to be financial. Let's be real. How many times have we heard Evan Rachel Wood in recent years before the Me Too movement?
Yeah.
And when Esme Bianco claims that she lost work or whatnot from her symptoms of PTSD, all you have to do is pop in her IMDb and see she's been regularly working more now in recent years before the accusations. So it doesn't make sense.
No.
I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then you have all these people that come out of the woodwork after, in the weeks after, which look opportunistic. You had, I think it was Phoebe Bridgers that had an album she announced like a week or two after that she came forward. Something like that.
I remember that. She posted about that, I think, on Facebook. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I don't know if it's her or Chloe Black that is I think it's Phoebe Bridgers is being sued for defamation right now.
Phoebe it could very well be both, though, because Chloe Black was in it, too.
Ah, okay. And then, I don't know if you guys saw, there's that Bianco? Is that her name?
Bianco.
Do you know who I'm talking? That's her name? Bianco?
Yeah, Bianco.
Who went on a podcast. Well, first off, she went on The Sun to make allegations. So she probably got paid. She went in The Sun twice. Then she goes on someone's Patreon podcast that's free for anyone to listen to allege that a friend of hers who was 14 years old when she was 16 was R-worded by Manson in the 90s when she was 14. This person is now passed away. So we can't even verify if this really happened or if the person is real. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it would have never been published in any publication because of that fact. On top of
Right.
that, she also claims this continued relationship with Manson. If she knew this when she was 16 and this girl was 14, why are you on and off having this relationship with Manson?
Right.
Like all this stuff that doesn't make sense. And
No.
Are
even
you
in the,
talking about Bianca Alain, I think is her name?
I think so. I have to look at my notes, but that might be the name.
Okay.
I'll find the podcast and send it.
Okay.
It's very disturbing. So definitely trigger warning because she is an actress. And
What a surprise.
or a model or both, but I mean she went into gory and she like is scream crying, so very dramatic. But in the beginning of this podcaster says he's been raising alarms for years on the troubling Marilyn Manson, and then brings up some supposed accusations against John 5 that happened years ago, which is an internet rumor only.
Per usual.
And then what was the other thing? Also claimed that Evan likely had met Manson earlier, before 18, and was just this whole time just lying about it. So, and this is during, the accusations coming forward. So he's like, oh, it sounds like that she was lying about her age just to make cover for the fact. I mean, come on. I mean, that's not what she says. She's never claimed it.
She was
But
19 when they met for the first time, and they started dating when she was 20, so she was not underage.
Well, it's the other way. They met at 18 and then dated at 19.
Yeah, but these people have to realize that she's born in 1987, so that
She's still an adult. She's still an adult. She's still an
Right.
adult. Like
yeah.
this whole thing about making her sound like this childlike fantasy.
They're not doing the math. That's what they're not doing.
But the thing, there are real people who believe in. I said this to someone earlier. I don't think I mentioned this here. I've dated older guys before. It's just like everyone has their thing. Apparently, that's mine. But I've learned, especially in my early 20s, because that's where you hear people like to be vocal about their opinions about this stuff. It's when you're in your young 20s and you're dating someone, 20 plus years older then, is they have a problem with it then because they're looking at you, they're doing the math, and they think you're a baby dating a 23-year-old. And that's the P word. That is them dating a child. So I literally had a friend who was at the time my best friend admonish me in a text because I was dating someone 23 years older because it's like he was dating a child. Even though I was an adult woman of 22 years old.
Wow.
Wow.
If you want to, like, I hate to say it, do some Googling on that. There are people that believe this. And I think, speculation only, that it's playing into that hand. Because there are real people who believe that stuff. And then there's also that other hand, well, it's a bit ageist to assume that just because you're a younger woman, you're, after them for money. And she really did get admonished really bad in the media, at least in the gossip, Perez Hilton and all that back then, because I remember it. And that was part of the reason in my own relationship, I kept it a little bit more hush-hush than I wanted to, because I didn't want to be admonished and have all these problems. And, I regret it now, but, that's what you get for time and, time to think about things. But, yeah, so I keep saying it, but this whole thing, like, you really have to spend a lot of time to actually dig into it. So if anyone like watches this part, you have to have an open mind, keep looking into things, because when you think you find something more.
Yeah.
Right.
You're going down a rabbit hole. There's no stopping you.
Exactly. But it's so important to look into it too.
Yeah.
It's very
Honestly, at first, like for the first couple days, I believed Evan because obviously we don't know like what's going on behind closed doors, at least not with Marilyn Manson. But then things started popping up, and I was like, wait a second, that doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense.
Right. Yep. Yeah, when allegations first dropped, for about 4 days or so, I believed Evan and the other accusers. About 4 days. And I was heartbroken. I cried day and night. Like, I'd be making dinner, crying my eyes out. My kids would be like, Mommy, what's wrong? And I'm like, I can't talk about it. And, then I started like looking into things and going on, reading their allegations. And, that's when I had found like Stand By Your Manson on Instagram and things like
Yeah,
that.
same.
And like literally, it was like 4 days of me. And I think I fell into the trap of believe all women. I
Same.
really do. I think in a way that's ingrained into people in a way. And yeah, then things just didn't start to line up, and then instantly it was like, there's more to this. There's more to this.
Someone on Instagram pointed out to me, and strangely, of all coincidence, she is in that Manson circle. And she pointed out something to me I had not considered, which is when you have that experience of DV, it's almost like it's ingrained in you to first believe any accusation that comes out, because it is very hard to come forward. But when the information does not match what they're saying, when there are holes, when there are clear red flags, when their behavior doesn't match, there's enough there to ask questions. And I don't think it's wrong to ask questions, because unfortunately, because of these movements in our society that we had, now it's blame the man before they get their due process.
Right.
And then if you ask questions, it's, we'll wait till a trial. But wait a minute, that should have happened first. So what happens if now, for example, the investigation concludes in Los Angeles, which, let's be real, it's going to conclude in his favor.
Yeah.
They're not going to give him his jobs back. He has to literally sue her, Evan Rachel Wood, and Elma Gore to get his life back, to get his reputation back.
Yeah.
And just imagine, I can't imagine, one person making an accusation, but now there's several. And then it appears to be several more that just jumped on the bandwagon because, he was being accused anyways. And 2 of these people claimed to have specific evidence. And it's nearing a year and a half, and none of that has come forward. As many people watch the Phoenix Rising documentary, what was the newest thing we saw, which really, without context, looked like nothing or could be something, was just the video of, you hear Manson's voice and her voice and him walking. You do not know that's him.
It
You
could
do
be
not
literally anyone else.
And we have the technology today, and I know because I have the program where I can deep fake my own voice. So that's
It's
why
easy
stuff
these days.
right. So, and if that was a real video, it didn't sound like anything like threatening. If you've ever heard a Marilyn Manson interview, he says a lot of stuff in jest. He's being funny.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really look like that to me, like there's anything nefarious going on. So I really hope he gets his day in court. And I really hope, in California is even harder from my understanding, with the anti-slaps, I believe it was, or something else. So all he has is the hurdle of the anti-slap, which I think he will be fine with, especially as it concerns the FBI letter.
Right.
And it still sounds like he has probably more than the Johnny Depp trial, but what more is going to come from this? Are they going to request phone records, text messages? From my understanding, I don't believe that they can request, because it's not a criminal trial, I don't believe they can request social media type stuff. But I'm not an expert.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do know that they'll have like a discovery period where they request certain things, but I'm not sure what all is included in that list of certain things.
And so I just hope, whatever the evidence shows, that it goes in favor of him, because right now it's looking like this really was a conspiracy. If something comes out that says otherwise, I just don't, right now in my bones, I don't believe that to be true, because it would already be out there. It would have been in the documentary, and
it would have been in the news even.
Right. And I don't know if anyone caught this. When she read her notes in the documentary, she read it in a way past tense. She didn't write it because how do I explain this? I believe she explained it was her journals she wrote at the time. But she was reading them past tense, which means she would have created them recently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So
based on the documentary, it looks like they just open up Word or something and just type shit down to make it credible, I guess.
Right. I mean, if she's willing to stage at the FBI building where there's no FBI, is it completely out of scope that she would not fake her own journals on a computer? Like, who has their computer from 15 years ago? Right?
Not a lot of people.
So I mean, I guess you could save them in a USB drive, but like, why? Right? Like, I don't get it. Like, there was LiveJournal. You make that private at the time. Did she actually read from actual journals, like written journals? Do you remember?
From what I remember, it was mostly on the computer screen, if not all. Like, I remember people being like, well, where are the actual handwritten journals? Because it was all like a Word document or something.
Yeah.
Well, it was just one of those things that kind of struck me, is how she was reading it in past tense, claiming that these journals were from that time period. You're going to write in the moment, not in past tense. So I don't know. I just thought that was a little.
That's
bizarre.
very odd. That's very odd.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and then also her behavior in Phoenix Rising, I've noticed it's not at all like a victim. It's more like a cult leader. And she's competing against somebody. You know, when she's talking in the group, she's very often like that.
Yeah,
and lifting your chin up means that you're competing against somebody. Like, fight me.
Well, what's interesting is, I wish I knew where I read this from recently. Maybe it was your channel. I don't know. Esme had a bigger role in Phoenix Rising, but really was cut out. There was
I noticed that too.
Because you would think that, now here's the interesting thing. If you go over to Esme Bianco's Twitter, let me think. You could see that she was claiming to be a part of the creation of the Phoenix Acts. She was part of the original owners. Her name's not on the paperwork, but she was clearly in some active role within it. So I question if, and maybe it's because she is suing him right now, like if she will ever be added. But I think it's because her name is not on the paperwork. Because she clearly puts out, there's a Medium article where she shares her stuff saying she, helped create the act, all this other stuff. She was giving out one of the emails of the, if you can help us, here's the email. Hard to say. And I'd be very interested to learn who her husband was that she claimed she left for Manson. Because who is he? Where's he at?
Who is this mysterious man?
Was she ever really married?
I don't think so.
So the only way to find out who she married in the UK, you have to go to their borough or something. I think they call it a borough, and put in request for, put her name in, but then you have to pay a fee. But if it's the wrong borough, you have to put in for each borough. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, I can't even if I was curious. And it goes by 10 years. So if you want to go back 20 years, you got to pay for 20 years for each one. I'm like, why isn't there just like one central place? Like here, you know what I mean? Where you can like put in, but whatever. That is a mystery. I wonder if we'll ever find out. Because I've looked, you know, back on her, I know you guys saw her like burlesque type stuff.
Yeah.
But there's no photos of him. Like, so it's, you know, at these places where she did the show. So it's like, I don't know. Was she really ever married? Like, I got questions.
Right. Yeah.
Because she claims she claims she left him for Manson. So, or whatever, the story keeps changing. So I really don't know. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Liars can't keep their story straight. They just have to add more lies.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, Evan might be a good actress, but if you're lying, you'll get caught in the lie.
Yeah.
That's why if you get a good lawyer, it's very easy to unravel, because you might think when you're lying, everyone lies, right? So you might think when you're lying, you're going to keep up with that lie. But at some point, you're going to get caught because you can't keep all your lies. Or you're going to break. Oh, yeah. And she might, you know, I know everyone's like, well, she's a good actress. I'm not worried about her being a good actress.
I don't care about that.
Yeah. Like, the thing is, at the end of the day, if there is proof that you are lying and you say the wrong thing, which so far we're already finding holes in what she has said. So if that was that simple for us little, you know, what do I want to call us? Little Mansonites. Just digging it, or what do they call it? Armchair internet experts, to find these holes. So it's not unexpected that they would find that at court as well.
Yeah.
I like that. Internet armchair expert.
But yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like this is going to go Manson's favor because, I mean, with all the inconsistencies and then everything that he probably has that we're unaware of, you know, and with good attorneys who can prove everything, like, I think this will work out well.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my gut so far, and in my bones, it's going to go well.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't a criminal suit. This is a civil suit, so it's definitely going to go in his favor.
It does make me curious, though, if Evan, which looks like she impersonated an FBI agent.
Right.
She did.
If she is being investigated, because I pointed this out to someone on Twitter earlier. If I could not get confirmation from the FBI in a written letter that they cannot confirm or deny Manson was investigated, they're not going to do that for Evan. So no one will know unless there are charges.
Right.
And
yeah, I know the same thing. I want to know if she's going to have criminal charges put against her, if this is going to count to anything, and Elmagor as well.
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to just go down for this crap, but they're also going to go down for messing with the federals and for somehow getting a hold of CP.
Yeah.
And Evan also for parental kidnapping, at least for like, I think it was like up to 5 years in state prison.
Well, you know what's interesting? I found an article that Evan already had a home in Nashville for years. So this whole story that she puts in Phoenix Rising, she just doesn't say that she already had a home. She just doesn't add the fact that she also had another place in LA. So that's the place that she already had a place to go to.
Yeah,
so
right.
If you just go back and look at old interviews, she talks about it because she wanted to raise her child in the South.
Yeah,
right.
I believe in an interview she did with Ellen a couple of years ago, she does mention that she lives not in Nashville, but in Tennessee, like up in the South.
Yeah. I found an interview from 2018, and I think it was the New York Times, and they discuss how she moved. Now, this article was in 2018, and it discusses how she's lived in Tennessee for several years, Nashville, Tennessee. So, and then it doesn't say she had a home, but somehow I found out she did have a home. So I was curious to see. I haven't done it yet. Usually, because they're, these people are famous, you can always Google, find out where they actually lived. And then you can actually pull the records if it was an actual home that she owned and see when she moved. That's public information. So,
yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah. But even if she has a home, she still kidnapped her own son because it was without Jamie's knowledge and without his consent. And she forbids Jack to speak to his father. So.
Isn't that a form of abuse?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Not to mention, he's filling his head full of things about Manson being abusive and almost like he's like, the monster under the bed or in the closet, like
makes you wonder if he ever, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
If he reported her to CPS or something, like we would never know.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if it did.
Yeah, her son, if things don't stop, he's gonna suffer mentally because of it.
Yeah.
And just from the articles we had read, where it said that he's fearful, like he fears every day. Like that's not normal for a little kid.
No.
And it's really bizarre to see people who have watched the documentary not say anything about that part. Like your child only knows this person exists because you're telling them. You're telling them these things. Why would you tell a child of that young age all this stuff to make them fearful?
Yeah, I mean, that's because he's still young and impressionable. So he's going to believe anything his mother says.
Yeah, but why in the world would a mother do that?
I have no clue.
To me, that sounds, personally, let me put this, speculation alert, I think that's abusive.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm a mother and I couldn't imagine being like that with my kids. So I do too. I agree with that.
I would think if that was truly happening, what is a therapist going to tell you? They're going to tell you to make their life normal. Why would you tell your child, like a child who does not understand? Like it's bizarre to me. That's not normal behavior.
No, it's not.
No, not. Like I feel really bad for him, and I hope Jamie Bell can retain custody of him, and he can start seeing his son again and things like that.
Yeah, I really hope so too. He seems like a parent that actually cares about his child, not using him for PR.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think Evan should learn a thing or two from him.
Yeah.
Well, is she ever going to though? No.
No, that's why I'm like, yeah, well, it
makes me wonder though if he will have an appearance on behalf of Manson, because him having a child with her and being in a long-term relationship with her, even before Evan and Manson got together, if I remember the history correct, they were dating before and then after their relationship.
Yeah, I think so too.
And you're right. Because the way he's portrayed in The Phoenix Rising is like he was an understanding of her symptoms, which also conflicts with what is said later, that it took her 7 years to realize that she had this PTSD and all this other stuff. So you're claiming it, remember? So it does take a while. I can tell you from my own experience, it does take a long time to realize that like all these symptoms I'm having are PTSD, but you don't like one day wake up realizing like that, you know what I mean? Like
you just don't wake up and we're like, oh fuck, I was abused by this person.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you just some of the symptoms can mimic other health issues, and you don't think that they're related. For example, I have short and long-term memory loss, stuff like that. That's why it takes me so long to do my own type of content for the Manson cases. And there's some other stuff, but like, why would I think that has anything to do with PTSD, right? Like, I have no idea. I have chronic pain that I'm still pending diagnosis for to know what it is, which apparently autoimmune issues also go with PTSD, IBS, gastritis even. All these things I have plus more. You don't normally think, oh, it must be this thing that I keep thinking about that happened like a decade ago plus more. So
Right.
it does take a long time, but this idea that it takes exactly 7 years to process. But then she's saying in her own words that it was her symptoms that he didn't understand. He was victim blaming. Jamie Bell was victim blaming. But
Right.
she didn't know she had this for years, and I think she even claimed she had Stockholm syndrome, which was interesting.
That is such a bizarre claim.
I can see maybe speculation alert. The mother,
Maybe.
if you read past interviews, the mother, because she was saying in some interviews how she was sleeping in her mother's bed and all this stuff up until she started dating Manson. So they were together every day. Like, I just don't buy this story about she was this child. Like, if that's all it takes to accuse someone is to say you had this childlike mentality, maybe you should seek help. Like, I don't know how else to say that, and I know it's probably gonna make some people mad, but your family is backing you up because they're your family, right? Yeah. They already know in this documentary it's gonna be against Manson because you told them these things that happened, supposedly, quote unquote. Yeah. They're gonna be on your side. So I'm not gonna take a lot of their word for it, because until I see more that, you know, contradicts the lawsuit, or I mean, we really haven't seen any evidence of anything. So
right, I'm not on their side, at least.
Right. And the way I see it, if the analogy is that more accusers means more guilt, then it should also be more accusers, more evidence. Right?
Yeah.
I would like to think that, yeah.
Right. And it doesn't even need to, if one person had one thing and then they all did, right? That's evidence. So that's where I'm kind of like, I'm not seeing that. I know that they posted a picture, whatever they said, but at the end of the day, if that was shown at a police station, that's not evidence without metadata, without showing, you know, that type of thing. And in this day and age where it's so easy to create your own graphics and what do they call it? Memes. I don't know. They call it all these things. Like, I'm very skeptical. If it's like, I can right now put the name Marilyn Manson in my phone and text him, even though it's not a real person, go on Google, what do they call it? Google Voice, and have a conversation and say it's Marilyn Manson. Yeah. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Or you can just play an interview with him and say that, oh yeah, I spoke with Marilyn Manson. He said this and he said that to me.
Did you guys see, before I forget, because I have to find it, I swear I heard some quote unquote voicemail that was supposed to be proof of a threatening voicemail of Manson, but it sounded like a robot. It was hard to believe. And this, I probably even heard this last year. I'll have to find it. And I'm like, people believe this is.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, me neither.
I'll have to find it.
The Annie's claim where she had a conversation with Manson supposedly, but what you're talking about, I don't know.
I'll see if I can find it, because this would have been last year, and it was just a vague thing I saw and I listened to it. I'm like, well, that doesn't, it sounded like deep voice, like the deep fake voice. So if you, I don't know if you know, like, even like there's a podcast editing software. There's several of them now where you can like take your own voices, upload it, and create a voice from it. Yeah. And it sounded like chopped up like that, but not like horribly bad, but enough to be like, that does not sound like a real person having a conversation and leaving a bad voice.
That sounds like an AI talking.
Yeah, and it did. And at the time, I just thought it was someone just playing, you know, it didn't like register because it was so dumb and so obvious that I thought it was just someone being stupid. I'll see if I can find it. It was, man, maybe it was with the Amy Abram chick, but it's so long ago I don't remember. I know it was on YouTube. That I do remember.
Okay, yeah, it could have been. The whole Annie thing, it almost sounded like, it did sound like sort of robotic. It sounded almost like they could have taken a conversation that Manson had, and then she interjected responses whenever he wasn't even speaking to her. I know that that was one of the theories. Then again, it could have just been, like you said, like she had someone else record it and try to put Manson's voice over it, or who knows. But
I mean,
yeah.
anything is possible with technology these days. So
there's a podcast program I was looking into to possibly use called Descript, and I can literally just upload him talking or myself, and it'll create, the voice for me, and I can type in whatever I want it to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's just how it works now. Even just for podcasting, you can do that. If you want to edit some words out and edit some words in, you can do that now with deep fake voices.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
So, well, yeah, to wrap this up, is there anything you want to conclude or add or anything?
No, I think we touched on quite a lot in a long period of time. So
Yeah.
I never really saw myself having anything to do with the Manson cases, but lo and behold, here I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's good. It's good to have more voices out there, and especially because you're so objective. And I mean, that's what's needed. There's so many people who are just, completely one side or the other, but you have to look at both sides.
Yeah.
And look at the evidence where there's a lack of.
Yeah, and of course I have a bias. Of course you could even say I made an opinion, because I do have one. But the easiest way to, do that is to be objective. But like I'm assuming you guys know what I mean. Like attacking certain aspects of them doesn't help anything. If you just point to a fact and how it conflicts, that's all you really need to do.
Yeah.
So I don't think attacking someone, because if they were a supposed, rape victim, they wouldn't do this or that. Sure, I do understand that, because even I look at the behavior and put myself in their shoes. I can't help it. But I don't I don't see myself putting that out there so much, because it is objective, really. I can watch movies with rape in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just because you have that experience doesn't mean you can't,
Yeah, I understand that completely.
So I don't think it just looks, I don't know. I just think that leaves people out of the conversation who might be disturbed by that type of, pointing out.
Yeah.
I don't have any qualms saying it, like saying, personally, like on here, like her behavior doesn't match. Right. I don't mind saying stuff like that, but I'm like, once you get into the weeds of other stuff like that, it sounds victim blaming, even though I don't think she's a victim.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the best way to do it is just to point out to what they're saying and how it conflicts to what they've said before, and go from there.
Yeah. Definitely.
I don't know if you guys are aware. You can actually see what time they posted their Instagram post on Instagram.
Oh, really? I was wanting to see
Yes.
that before, like exactly what time, like who went first. So obviously, I think I went first.
But once you look at that, kind of like, okay, certainly looks like they posted around the same time.
Yeah, I'm extremely interested in seeing that, because that's something I've been wanting to see since the allegations dropped.
Right, and that's why I think, I guess the pro Manson accounts say the coven. I can see that, like looking at this graphic where they came out that day. So if it says unknown, it's only because either they deleted their Twitter post account or it was an Instagram story shared by Evan. So we don't really have a time. You have to go by what's posted on social media, and I don't include that in that graphic yet, anyways. Okay, I guess I'll end it at that. It was nice chatting with you guys. I'd love to do it again sometimes. It's amusing to me that Evan and Esme claim that they're doing rapid eye movement therapy when it's not really. It's not that it's not recommended. It's just it's not really recommended in a way, because usually people drop out of it all the time, back and forth, because it's really tough. So to then come out of that smiling with mascara running down doesn't really make sense to me.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all.
It was given to me as one of the options because apparently there are several options for treatment. And I was literally said it was hard. She told me, you'll probably drop out and it's not, I don't recommend it for you, but I have to tell you. And people will come back and forth to do that therapy.
Yeah.
For years. And I'm like, no.
Was there nothing else you wanted to add after any of you wanted to add after this discussion?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's always more to talk about, but you know.
That's for another video.
I don't think people want to listen to us ramble on for 5-6 hours, you know, but
yeah.
I think it's good, you know, to leave it at that for now. I mean, people can check out our Instagram pages. Ours is Truth for Manson, and yours is what, the Themansoncases?
Yeah.
Right. The Manson cases.
Yeah.
I'll link everything down below. So
yeah.
Cool. I'm sure we'll be chatting because we're gonna have like 2 years of 2 years of fun with this. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
let's collab more.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in collabing more, so hopefully we'll be able to connect more.
I'm sure of it.
I'm just glad I have quite a bit of time to piece everything, like the website, together, and then I can focus on the videos. So I stopped focusing on the videos I was working on in favor of the website. Okay, well, I'll let you guys go. I know Beatrice and myself are hungry, so I'm gonna go find dinner.
Yeah. Sounds like
it was nice meeting you both.
It was nice talking to you.
It was nice talking to you. Nice connecting finally.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure.
So I'm sure we'll be in the loop.
Yeah, for sure. And as for everyone watching, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment and all that, and follow our socials if you don't already.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys
for watching. And thank you, Lisa, was that your name?
Yes.
For joining us. And thank you for joining us. Sorry, I suck at names, but thank you for joining us.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, well, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. I'm waving, but you can't see me. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody.